everyone, and welcome to this new conversation of excellence. Today, I'm so excited because I have a very special guest today, Matt Langridge. Matt is one of UK's most successful athletes. He has competed 4 times at the Olympic Games, winning 3 medals. He has won also multiple world championship titles. And after a career of 16 years with the British rowing team, he finally accomplished his goal of being an Olympic champion. I mean, there's just so many things to say about Matt, and I'm so happy we will discover along during the conversation. Matt, welcome. I'm happy to see you again.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for having me on.
Well, Matt, there are just so many things to say about you, and I'm like, there needs to be more time to say everything about you. But as an introduction, what have I missed to share with the people about who you are?
I mean, I think the introduction was pretty good. I mean, I think it's yeah, definitely makes me feel more impressive than I really am. So I mean, I guess for me, obviously, in terms of the introduction, it's no. I mean, my rowing career is as you said. I think the highlights were obviously the highlight was the Olympic medal, was the Olympic gold medal and the medals. Obviously, going to 4 Olympic Games, World Championships, and kind of success in the European Championships as well. So in terms of the rowing side of it, I think you kind of covered everything. I mean, I think I guess the only thing that really is kind of what I've gone on to do afterwards, which is for me a new exciting chapter. But I'm sure we'll talk about that as we go on. So.
Yes, I have not forgotten about that, because I remember the first time we met, you did talk to me about that new chapter, that other passion of yours, which is aviation.
Yes. Yep.
Where are you at regarding that part of your journey?
So since we last spoke, I've now qualified. So I've now fully qualified as a commercial pilot.
Wow! So congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, obviously, as I'm sure you're aware, it's not the best time to qualify in aviation, but it's something that I always wanted to do.
Wow.
Definitely, when I was younger, I remember going to careers days and them talking to me and asking me, and there was always a big vision and big goal. And I think obviously, though, with rowing, you have a shorter opportunity to do it. So obviously, I prioritised rowing first. That was also another passion. Obviously, as an athlete, that you know that unfortunately, you can only do it while you're young. There is definitely a limit to what age you can keep going to. So I prioritised that. And then when I kind of came to the end of my rowing career and I was looking at what else to do next, and aviation had always been in the background. It had always been something I'd really wanted to do. And I kind of felt I've been privileged enough that I've managed to make one career out of a passion, and maybe I'll try my luck and see if I can make another one. And okay, as of yet, I'm still in the position of trying to make a career out of it. I'm fully qualified. I have my commercial license. I'm ready to go, and now it's just a case of finding a job, which obviously in the current climate is certainly more difficult than it possibly would have been otherwise. I think up till the first lockdown, the aviation side was really booming, but I think it's unfortunately with lockdowns and stuff, the aviation's definitely been hit quite badly. But I said the one good thing of not the one good thing. One of the things that rowing has really taught me, and my career as an athlete has taught me, is about being persistent and resilient. And I think it's been tested now more than I was expecting it to be. But it does mean I am confident that as long as I am persistent, I'm resilient, then I will get to my goal in the end. And hopefully, definitely. I'm not sure when that'll be, but I'll achieve my goal, and that will be my next career in aviation, and I can kind of follow my second passion or first passion, whichever way you want to look at it.
It's great that you made the bridge between the rowing part and the aviation part through persistence. And it was going to be ultimately one of my questions during this conversation. I'm very happy that you brought it up. And my next question is actually related to when you decided to end your career as an Olympic athlete and go towards that other passion, were you ever in a state of, will I make it? Or is it going to work? Because it was something totally new for you when you started aviation, right? The passion was there, or yeah, how did you come to that decision? And what
Yeah.
were the insecurities and the fears and the
No, there definitely were. I think for me, obviously, I mean, yeah, it was a passion, but I'd certainly not really done anything in aviation.
Mm,
Um, I'd been up flying a couple of times with a friend's dad. He'd taken me up in a small plane, and I'd had a lesson back in 2009. I think my mum, as a Christmas present, bought me a 1 hour lesson, and I'd done that. But in terms of me actually doing it, I'd done very minimal flying. So it wasn't like it was something that I'd kind of that I knew I was going to be any good at. I think obviously that was the difference with rowing. By the time I started to make a career out of rowing, I already knew I was good at it. I knew that I had a talent for it. I knew I had the potential. It was a case of, so because I'd obviously done the junior team, I'd been successful as a junior. I'd won the junior world championships, and at that point I'd got invited to come and join the senior team. So by the time I had kind of gone into being a full-time athlete, I already knew I had the talent and the ability to kind of make a career out of it. It's not guaranteed. There's still a lot of hard work, but you at least are reassured by, okay, I've got the foundation there. But with aviation, for me, it was something completely into the unknown. I'd done minimal flying. I hadn't really, it was kind of. So in terms of me having the confidence, it's something I could see through. Yeah, there were doubts. I think for me, one of the biggest doubts was actually the studying side of it. So the first part of my course is 6 months of ground school, where you don't touch a plane. It's just learning about all the theory involved in aviation, and it's really intense. It's kind of, they say it's a degree's worth in 6 months. So you are. So you're cramming that 3-year degree into 6 months. There's a lot of learning, and you're spending every weekend you're studying, evenings you're studying. And for me, obviously, being older, I'm older than the average cadet. I hadn't been in the classroom for quite some time, so there was a lot of those doubts of how well I would cope and how well I would cope with that studying. And so there were kind of doubts initially, and eventually I kind of came to the conclusion that if it's something you really want to do, you just have to go for it and back yourself that you'll find a way. And I think that's, again, another thing that Ron has taught me, is that sometimes it's not easy, but if it's something you're really passionate about or you're really motivated to do, you will find a way to get to where you want to be. And actually, when I had made the decision, I chose the school to go to and I started the course, I was very pleasantly surprised, because I think a lot of the discipline I'd learned through sport in terms of applying myself and the rigorous of the structure really actually helped me. I think for me, one of the things, so actually the fact that we were studying all day, coming back in the evening studying, then at weekend studying, I actually didn't find too bad, because I was used to that routine of sport. I mean, when I was rowing, we wouldn't get a day off we might get a day off a month. And so I kind of used to that, not going out, prioritizing and focusing on something, and sacrificing my social life in order to do it. So I actually think I found it probably much easier than some of the younger guys who maybe didn't have that kind of life experience behind them. So actually, I said, although I had those doubts to begin with, I was very pleasantly surprised once I got started and applied myself, how kind of the lesson, being a bit older, a bit more mature, I think it really showed. And it showed me, actually, there was a lot of things I'd learned as an athlete that I could apply to this new career. And it definitely, I think, helped me and made me realize, that sport hasn't just taught me how to do well in sport, it's also taught me a lot of life lessons that I can now take into aviation.
Wow. That's really wonderful. And the fact that you say that, I'm actually curious, are there other areas of your life in which you find yourself reusing what you have learned from the rowing part of your career
Uh,
besides aviation?
yeah, I think there's lots of. I mean, I think especially when you're in. I mean, obviously, I can only speak for my sport of rowing, but I think the rowing, the discipline side of it, and the side of it that you say, okay, sometimes, yeah, you just have to knuckle down and grind through it. And I think that definitely, in stressful times and stressful environments, that definitely helps. You do just have to kind of button down hatches, and I think that's what sometimes with rowing, there's definitely in the dark winter days when there's no light at the end of the tunnel, you do have to just kind of grind and know that ultimately, as long as you stick with it and you have that kind of resilience, then it will all pay off. And I think certainly in other aspects of life, that definitely helps. And yeah, I can't think immediately. I think at the moment, the best example I can say is obviously through my recent flight training that yes, there have been setbacks. I mean, the biggest one now being this one. But I do have that confidence based on what I've done before that I am persistent, I am resilient, that I'm determined enough that ultimately I will get to where I want to be. Because, as you said, I mean, my rowing career, I didn't get to where I wanted to be straight away. I came out of the juniors very successful, but it took me 4 Olympic Games till I finally got the gold medal. Although I had a lot of success along the way, my ultimate goal was always that gold medal. And so it took 4 Olympic Games to get there, and it was that. And it's that being able to kind of pick yourself up when sometimes it doesn't go your way that I think I've really learned, and hopefully will kind of stand me in good stead now going forward.
Well, that it's really great that you bring up the fact that it took you 4 Olympic Games to finally have the gold medal. And I remember, I took note about that, actually. I have my notes from the time we met here. And I remember that after the Olympic Games in 2012 in London, it was like a turning point for you. And one of the things you said is that you started to enjoy your journey as an Olympian at that moment. Can you maybe share with us and the people who are listening why enjoying the journey and not focusing only on the medal, that's what I highlighted, was a great part of Rio's success in 2016?
Yeah, I think for me, obviously, so one of the things we do as an athlete was always, we're always pushing to be better. I think, and that's the thing actually, okay, so I say that my motivation was to win the gold medal. Actually, my real motivation was to be the best I could possibly be. That was my ultimate goal in doing that. And that was the thing, I think the biggest thing for me. If I'd felt maybe after Beijing, when I got the silver medal, that I was as good as I could possibly be then maybe at that point I'd have said, right, okay, this is as good as I can possibly be. I've achieved as much as I can achieve in this sport, and I might have decided to retire then. But for me, the big thing was actually, no, I still believe I've still got a lot more to give. I still believe that there's improvements I can make. And as long as I always had that, I felt that was a good reason to keep going. And even when said the London didn't go the way I wanted it to, I still felt there was lots of things I could take from it and make sure I'd improve to go forward to Rio. So I think I explained to you, like, when we had our conversation earlier, that the time after London was probably in some ways my most difficult time to overcome, because I think in the build up to London, I'd had a really successful 4 years. I'd been the world champion twice in that period. I was the world champion in 2011 before the year before the games. So I really went into London with high hopes that we could go and win the gold medal. And I think, unfortunately, that season didn't go the way we wanted it to. We had a lot of illnesses and injuries, and I think that probably wasn't managed as well as we could manage it. So for us, although we raced as well as we could do on the day, the season as a whole was a disappointing one, because we hadn't put ourselves in giving ourselves the best opportunity to win the gold medal.
Mm-hmm.
But what added to that disappointment was the fact that it was London. And I think being a home game just gives it that extra special feeling. Going to any Olympics is incredible. I think it's you feel really privileged, and it's an incredible experience. But certainly going to the home games is a once in a lifetime. You know that I knew that okay, I could potentially go on to Rio, but Rio wouldn't be home games. That was my one opportunity to win a gold medal in front of a home crowd. So that gave it that extra special, and to miss the ultimate goal of winning the gold in London was for me particularly disappointing. It probably took me a good year really to get over and get past. I remember being at the World Championships the following year in 2013, and I was in. I decided to take a step away from the 8. I think again because of the disappointment of London, I decided to change boats and go into a double, just as a kind of a break. But it meant I was sat on the bank. We didn't do very well in the double, so we didn't make the A final, which meant that I was sat on the bank watching all the A finals come past, and I watched the 8s race where the British 8, without me in it, went on and won the gold medal.
Wow. And
for me, that was obviously then watching the boat that I've been in the year before win a gold medal was in some ways for me personally it was disappointing at the time because obviously I would have liked to be in the boat, but actually it was probably the best thing for me because it made me reevaluate kind of my attitude and made me really look and say, okay, look, if I want to carry on to Rio, what are the things I can still improve? And obviously, I had physical things, but actually my approach was a big thing that I identified. And what I realized is that in some ways that in the build-up from Beijing to London, I'd been so focused on that gold medal that actually the only thing that was going to make that 4 years worthwhile for me was the gold medal in London. And because we hadn't achieved it, I'd almost seen that whole period as a failure in my eyes. Whereas actually, on reflection, a year later, looking back, I realised that I'd had a really successful 4 years. Okay, the end result hadn't quite been what I wanted it to be, but actually, in terms of me growing as an athlete, as me improving, me having success, there was a lot I could take out of it. So what I kind of said to myself was, if I'm going to go forward, what I need to do is make sure I enjoy the journey a lot more. I need to enjoy those little victories along the way. I need to enjoy being with my teammate, improving as an athlete, just almost so that I don't get to the point where I'm sitting on the start line in Rio and that entire 4 years is pinned on that one race. I think course is still big, it's still important, but actually if you've enjoyed the journey there, then it almost takes a bit of the pressure off. You can race, and you can race almost more freely, which is how I felt in Rio. I was able to sit on the start line in Rio and feel like I was excited that I had this opportunity to really finish off this great 4 years because I'd enjoyed it. I'd enjoyed the journey of being there, and it was this opportunity. Whereas when I sat on the start line in London, I wouldn't say it was fear. Obviously, I was still there to race Olympics, but you definitely feel more weight that this whole 4 years is pinned on this one race. And I said for me, enjoying the journey, it made me kind of as a person, as an athlete, happier. And I definitely feel like the more you can enjoy what you're doing, the better you perform. I think it's just a natural thing. And I said I didn't perform badly in London, but I definitely pinned the success of that 4 years on that one result. Whereas in Rio, yes, I wanted to win, but actually I made sure I'd really enjoyed the journey all the way up there.
Wow, that was like one of the best, most memorable piece of what you shared with me the first time we met. And thank you for, explaining and going through the whole story again about the enjoyment of the journey. Thanks a lot. I have a curiosity question to know, what is the most tiniest thing that you started to enjoy in your journey at that moment that you did not do before, for example?
It's a difficult one to answer. I think I think for me, a lot of it was enjoying being around the people that I was with, and actually enjoying the camaraderie within the team.
Like being
Um,
present.
yeah, I think I not that I didn't enjoy. I mean, I have a lot of friends from the period from Beijing to Rio, from
Mm-hmm.
London. Arguably, more of my friends now are from that period that I had from London, from Beijing to London, just because that was more the period I was in. I think by the time I went from London to Beijing, there was a great team around me, but a lot of I was more one of the older athletes.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the guys were a little bit less my age group. Whereas I think obviously I was more of the age group between Beijing to London. So I think in terms of my friendships, they're more from that period.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just the fact that you're with very like-minded people on a daily basis is something really positive that you can really take out. And I think that you've all got this same goal. You've all got this. You're all trying to achieve, maybe in slightly different ways, but you're all trying to achieve the same goal, the same outcome. And having people very like-minded around you, I think is a great, really enjoyable experience. And I wouldn't say that I didn't enjoy it before. I think I just didn't appreciate it maybe as much as I did. I think I became almost. I think in the period from Beijing to London, although I did enjoy it, there was always this underlining pressure on me. I felt on myself that I almost stopped myself fully enjoying it and relaxing in the moment, because I was always thinking about the gold in London. Whereas actually in the period from London to Rio, I just felt like, okay, I'm just going to enjoy the moment. I'm going to enjoy what I'm doing right now. And I'm almost not going to be, I think maybe that's the big thing, that I was always thinking ahead. So whatever victory we had in the between Beijing and London, okay, it was a good victory. I celebrated it, but it was like, well, I didn't fully celebrate it because I didn't fully appreciate it because it wasn't the gold in London yet.
Wow.
That makes sense. Whereas actually in the period from then, from London to Rio, I just decided, look, I'm going to enjoy the moment I'm in now. I'm not going to stop thinking about what's going to happen in 2, 3, 1 year time. I'm just going to enjoy whatever I'm doing now and enjoy those victories, whatever I get now. And I think that's in some ways part of the downside of having such a successful team as we do in rowing, because we do have so many gold medalists and we do have so many Olympic medalists. We're always looking 4 years in advance. We're always looking towards the Olympics, and we forget that actually to be a world champion is a great achievement. To win an international race is a great achievement. To PB on an ergo test is a great achievement, and we almost don't celebrate them with the kind of with as much as it deserves, because it's not the Olympics. And I think actually that was the big thing that I changed. Like, look, so I'm just going to enjoy the moment I'm in. I'm going to enjoy being around like-minded people. I'm going to enjoy whatever races, whatever achievements I get, I'm going to enjoy them and actually celebrate them with the amount they deserve. I think that for me it made me a much more relaxed person. It made me a more relaxed athlete. I wasn't constantly putting this added pressure on myself of thinking, okay, what's going to happen in Rio.
Wow. Well, thank you. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Really happy that you're taking time to share this this part with us today. My next question is related to Matt Pinsent. I remember you shared with me that one of the things which inspired you, if I remember well, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the fact that you watched him over television, right? And I remember that you also told me the fact that you actually met him. And when meeting him, you realized that he's just a human being like you. And it actually encouraged you to, go towards what you wanted. Can you share with us what has been the impact of being in the environment with Matt Pinsent in your journey? And
So,
correct me if I'm wrong, because I knew I took notes that day and it really touched me. But yeah, I remember that you mentioned Matt Pinson many, many times.
yeah, I obviously have to be careful because I know Matt well now, so
Okay.
I don't want to say I idolise him because I know him well, so he would. I don't want to give him too much of a big head. But so I think the story that you're talking about was so obviously so for me the way I got into rowing was when I was younger, when I was I think when I was back at school in 10, 12, 14, I just loved sport. I loved sport. I was really loved all sport, and I would basically try any sport that I got my hands on. So I used to swim, play football, rugby, athletics, any sport I could have the opportunity to try, I would do. I just had a lot of energy and really loved sport. And so when the Olympics were on, I'd be glued to the TV for that entire 2 weeks. I think it was the only time my parents really let me watch that much TV, but because it was sport, they were happy to let me watch it. So I'd pretty much watch everything from the gymnastics to the diving to the running to the hockey. Every sport that I could watch, I would watch. And it was in 1996 at the Atlanta Games when Britain were nowhere near as successful as we are now. I mean, obviously, we're in Rio and London and Beijing, we bring back multiple gold medals, but at the time we weren't as successful with Olympic sports. So we were having a particularly bad games, and it got to the middle weekend, and all the talk on the TV were about this. Our best chance for a gold medal were these two rowers, Steve Redgrave and Matthew Pinson. So that kind of got my interest, and I watched the race, and from that, afterwards, they were talking about how how tall people make good rowers, and I was quite tall as a kid.
Ah, okay.
So that kind of got me interested in it. And then, so I would say I'm a product of the Olympics. I was inspired by watching the Olympics because up to that point, I didn't really know anything about rowing. I didn't even watch the boat race. I didn't really pay any attention to it. And it actually turned out that having seen at the Olympics, there was a rowing club 5 minutes away from my house that I must have walked past all the time because we used to walk the dog along the river. But at the time, until I'd seen the Olympics, I didn't really appreciate it was a sport. I just thought people would just go out and row up and down the river as a recreational thing. So having seen Matthew and Steve win a gold medal, I kind of inspired me to take it up as a sport, and that definitely what kind of inspired me to kind of start in the first place. And then again, growing up, watching Sydney as a 17-year-old with Steve. Again with Steve Redgrave, Matthew Pinson, and then two others, James Cracknell and Tim Foster, win a gold medal. Again, that was more kind of, well, I said they were kind of my idols growing up. But then when I actually then joined the senior team, so 2004 was my first games, and it was actually Matthew's last game. So Matthew was still in the team going for his fourth gold medal when I just joined the team. And I think the story you're referring to is that when I was joining the team as a junior, I remember I used to get really nervous, and I used to kind of get those nerves that everybody gets, but at the time I didn't realize that where you feel sick and you have butterflies and you almost want to be anywhere but the place you are. You kind of almost want to run away. And I used to get these nerves and feel, oh God, as I was in the senior team, I remember I would look at Matthew, so we'd be before big race at Regatta because we were in the same team together by this point. And I remember looking at him, and he'd almost look so relaxed and calm. He'd almost look like he was fast asleep. I remember thinking, oh God, this is terrible. Like this is like I feel like I'm going to be sick, and he's so relaxed and calm. And thinking, oh, well, I need to be more like him, but I don't know how to be more like him. And I was like, how can he be so calm? How can he be relaxed? And at that point, I was thinking, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I don't know, I'm not strong enough, but then in the build up to the Athens Olympics, Jürgen, the chief coach, asked Matthew as the as the senior member of the team to give a talk to the rest of the younger athletes, because he was obviously the senior member going for a 4th Olympic gold medal, and a lot of us, like me, were going for our first Olympic Games. So he kind of gave a talk to the team to pass on his experience. And one of the stories he told was about before any big race, he would basically be sick over the side of the boat because he'd be so nervous. And for me, that was such a wake-up call, because I was like, oh wow, my like the guy I've been looking up to feels like that, then actually it's okay for me to feel like this. And it makes you suddenly realize that my perception of him was completely wrong. Like from the outside, I was looking at him thinking that he was really relaxed and wasn't nervous, and like almost said, it looked like for him, it just looked like another day at the office. But internally, he was feeling the exact same way I was. And actually that suddenly made me realize it was okay to feel the way I was doing. And then from that, obviously, as I've got up and I've got more experience, I've learned to deal with nerves and appreciate them, and realize that they were actually real positive. Because so by the end of my career, I definitely almost embrace the nerves. I'd want the nerves, because I realized that I performed my best when I was nervous. Like those are good things to get the best out of me. And actually they've never gone away. I still get asked whenever I go to like schools or any rowing clubs, and the younger athletes are speaking to me, they're asking me if I get nervous. And yeah, definitely. I get just as nervous now as I used to when I was younger. But it's about dealing with those nerves and using them in a positive way. But having Matthew, kind of somebody I looked up to, tell me that he felt the same way was a real eye-opener for me. And it really helped me at that point to kind of appreciate that I wasn't, that we're just the same, we feel the same. And I think that's the big thing. Sometimes when you look up to people, you almost feel like they're different to you, but actually it's that appreciation that we are all the same, we feel the same. It hurts just as much for him as it does for me when I'm really pushing myself. And I think that's something that we can, for me, I really took out of that, and it's the same that sometimes I think the perception of that people have when things go well for somebody is that it's almost easy and it's easier for them, whereas actually they're working just as hard as you are. That it's just a perception that you have that's sometimes wrong.
Wow. Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful coming back on that story. Is he aware about that?
He's probably not. No. So I've got to be careful. I don't want to give him too much of a big head, because I mean, obviously with rowing, I know Matthew very well, as I do Steve and those guys. But yeah, they were definitely the ones who inspired me to get into the sport in the first place. And I think
no, it's beautiful. It's beautiful the way you explain it. And today, I mean, you are the one who is inspiring others also with your story. At least you inspired me.
Yeah,
You know that.
I think for me, like, it's always nice to hear that if anyone, like I said, if anybody, obviously that's not the reason you go into it. Initially you go into it, but it's one of the nice things that if, I mean, actually, so I do have a story about when, so after London, it was after Beijing, we flew back from Beijing, and straight from Heathrow Airport, we got taken to a hotel where we had like some press conferences, because obviously we'd been out in China racing the Olympics, and then we had some press to do at a hotel, and then we were allowed to go home and kind of disappear. And I remember doing the kind of interviews and the media stuff at the hotel, and then as we were driving out of my girlfriend at the time came to pick me up, and as we were driving out of the hotel, there was kind of a big crowd of people who'd kind of come to see us, because they'd obviously not been able to see us out in Beijing, so they'd kind of come to see us and take pictures and stuff. And obviously there's a big crowd, and my girlfriend was like, oh, you should get out and show them your medal and take a picture. And obviously at the time I was like, well, I've only got a silver medal, they're not going to want to see me. And she was like, no, you should definitely get out and show them. And I was a bit reluctant, because I was like, well, I mean, that's unfortunately, although it's great to be a successful team like the rowing team, sometimes you do feel that, so when there's guys who've got gold medals, you almost feel a little bit, I wouldn't say inferior, but kind of that people are more interested in them than they are of you. But she luckily she kind of forced me to get out of the car, and I got out of the car and showed and had a lot of pictures and stuff. And then I got a really nice letter a couple of months later that was sent to my rowing club, and then they forwarded it on to me. And it was from one of the dads that day, basically saying that he'd been there with his kids, and I was the only medalist to get out and have pictures.
Oh wow!
He basically was saying that because of me, that his two kids had been inspired to take up rowing, and had gone down and found their local rowing club and loved it and were really into it. And I think for me, that was, again, it was another wake-up call of the impact that you do have. That sometimes you think that you're doing this thing that is just important to you, and it means, but actually you do have an impact on other people. And I think that for me was, it was a really nice moment. And I think that, I really appreciate it. They said my girlfriend who made me get out, and it's not always like I didn't want to. It's just at the time, you're in your own head, and you just think that, oh, they're not here for me; they're here for the gold medalist. But actually, it's just kind of showed, and the fact that I kind of could inspire some people to take it forward was really nice.
Oh, it's beautiful. You know what? I have a tear which is coming because of this story. That's so beautiful. It's really beautiful, and thank you for sharing that, because it's really concrete, like this concrete case where you had a medal, you thought they were just interested by a gold medal, and finally it had a ripple effect. And the fact that that father even told you that, I guess it gives another impact on it, because sometimes you just don't know, right?
Yeah, no, I think obviously I really appreciate that he'd obviously taken the effort to kind of to write, and obviously he had my address. He sent it to my club, and then my club forwarded it to me. And I think, for me, it kind of really showed. And actually, again, like I said, that's sometimes one of the great things about being part of a successful team like the team is that because there is this. I mean, I'm a big believer that a lot of the success of the team is down to mentality. Yes, of course, you have to have the talent, you have to have the ability, but it's ultimately the big difference in elite sport is mentality. It's about having that belief and that you can really win. And actually, it's the difference between thinking you can win and knowing you can win. And I think that's the big difference I've realized in the team over the years, is that we go to regattas, we go to Olympics, and we really know we should win. We've got that confidence that's built within the team. But the downside to that really successful team is the fact that sometimes if you don't get a gold medal, if you get a silver or bronze or make the final, or even just going to the games, which is still an amazing achievement, you almost feel a little bit like you've underachieved, you've failed because you've not achieved that, because it's so driven into us all the time that we're going there for this gold medal. And that was kind of one of the things where I kind of realized that, it's like I said before, you have to still celebrate these victories. And okay, yes, you might not have achieved the thing you ultimately went there for, but actually it's still a great achievement. And for me, and like I said, but even to go to a games is still a great achievement. And I think to have made it to games, I think is brilliant. And I think but sometimes it gets forgotten because we are in that kind of mentality of being a successful team. And I think, sometimes that is the downside to, I mean, like I said, the positive is that I think that we are successful because of that mentality. But equally, I do think the downside to it is the fact that, actually you can go there and you get a bronze, silver medal, and it's still a fantastic achievement, but you almost feel like it's not because you've got gold medalists.
Great.
But I mean, I think for me, that was kind of one of the stories for me that made me realize actually that, silver medal is still a great achievement, and actually it can still inspire people. And like I said, and for me, the fact that, two kids started rowing because of me, I think is definitely really makes me appreciate it.
Wow. It's like there's a whole chain onto the story, like you watching Matthew and you inspiring others. It's just beautiful. And it leads me to my next question, last question, one of my favorite ones, actually. So if you were to give a talk to your little self of 10 years old, What would you tell him? You have Matt, 10 years old, in front of you.
Oh God, I don't think there would be one thing. There'd be lots of things.
Oh.
Lots of things. I mean, I think that's the. I mean, I think for me, it's as an athlete, as a person, you're always learning. You'll make, and I mean, they say that you learn more from a loss than you do from a victory, which I think is true. And I think that, yeah, throughout my entire career, right up to I mean, arguably my last year was the most successful year. There's so many lessons that I kind of learned. I think I said the big one is that like we've already talked about, is to enjoy the journey. I mean, I was very fortunate that I had a career that lasted 4 Olympic Games, but equally, I know plenty of athletes who haven't made it to one because they might have got injured or ill, or so actually that could have been me, and I could have, because of that, I could have not had the opportunity to carry on. And I think if that had maybe happened after Athens, that would have been such a shame, because I definitely didn't enjoy Athens. I think so with Athens, I was so, again, I was so focused on doing well in Athens that when we didn't, we missed out on the A final by about that much. So for me, it was disappointing, but I was so focused on that result that I definitely didn't enjoy the second week. I mean, so rowing, we're really lucky that we raced the first week of the Olympics, which is quite a nice period to make sure you feel that you've been part of the Olympic Games, because obviously that's ultimately what we're there to do. We're there to do our sport. So a week of racing is a good time, but then we finish after the first week, and then we have the second week where we can kind of go out and go out in the evening, but also go and see all the other sports. And yes, this great opportunity that very few people get to do, where you're part of the Olympics, but you've got this VIP pass to everywhere. But because I was so focused on the result in Athens, I didn't enjoy that second week. I kind of didn't enjoy the games at all. Arguably, if somebody had said to me, "Okay, you can fly straight home," I would have done. I didn't allow myself. I was so disappointed. And then coming away from Athens, I remember chatting to like some of the other guys who'd been in the team who had kind of similar disappointing results to me, but they were kind of talking about how great it was and how they'd gone to this great event, or they'd watched this great sport, and I kind of suddenly made me realise I'd missed this great opportunity to enjoy it and be there. And after that, I kind of made a promise to myself that if I was to go to another games, then I would make sure, no matter what the result was, I would park that result, enjoy the rest of the games, and I would deal with it later on. When I was when things had all died down, but I'd make sure I enjoyed the games. And I said I was lucky enough that I then went to another 3, and I was able to do that. But if Athens had been my only one, I would have missed the opportunity. Because I didn't allow myself to enjoy it because I was so focused on that result. And I think that that would probably be the first one that I would tell myself. I guess the other one, in terms of a sporting sense, would maybe be to I think one of the things I learned as an athlete was to kind of prioritize my training. We do so much training that we always talk about training to giving everything 100%. In some ways, that's not feasibly possible. I mean, like we're still human. We're all humans, and one of the things I struggled with as a younger athlete was I was inconsistent with my training. I would train hard for 2-3 weeks, and then I'd get ill or injured, and then I'd train hard for 2-3 weeks, get ill and injured, and I was very much up and down. And then kind of what I realised as I got older was that I needed to kind of maybe prioritize the really important stuff, and be okay. I wouldn't say back off. I'm not obviously, you still applying myself to the best I can be, but almost say, okay, today is a day where I just need to get through the training. I can't push it. I can't push myself to the limit today. I need to recover. I need to, and that I actually found by doing that, I got a lot more consistency. And in some ways, so kind of my attitude was, okay, it's better to do 100% of the program and maybe 90% of the effort than it is to do 80% of the program, 100% effort. And I think that's, again, something that I've realized we have to do in life, that you do have to prioritize, okay, what's the really important stuff and what's the stuff that maybe, yeah, okay, I don't like using the word tick the box, but some things you do have to just tick the box and say, okay, that's done, rather than, because yeah, there's only so much you can give to everything. I think, yeah, unfortunately, that if we try and give it everything 100% all the time, we do burn out. So I think, yeah, maybe that's the thing. But I said, for me, there's so many lessons.
Wow.
So
I can imagine your conversation with yourself. It's like it's going to take, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see that it will be there will be a lot to say in the conversation from your experience with your team.
Well, I think, yeah, that's the thing is, I said with athletes, is that well, I think I'm not just saying athletes because obviously it's only my personal experience, but you do, a lot of it is about self-reflection, because we're always trying to be better. So we're always trying we're always trying to improve ourselves, and so you do have to sit back and say, okay, what were the things I did well, but what were the things I did not so well? And as long as there's those things, what did not so well, that can always be better. One of the things I talk about is that the thing is that for me, that was actually, that I sought out more than anything, was constructive criticism. Because actually, for me, that was the thing that was going to help me get better in sports. So as long as somebody was telling me, okay, that you didn't do that well, but actually, if you did it this way, you could do it better, I found that as a real positive. I mean, I know that we as people, we don't like criticism, but actually for me, I always saw it as a real positive thing, because ultimately I wanted to be better, and if they were telling me something that I could use to make me better, then they were helping me in that way. I mean, obviously it's always nice, as we always like hearing nice things about ourselves, but in some ways for me, that was, okay, that's really nice, but I can't use it. I can't make myself better. I always, like, that's something I can't change because I'm doing it well. Whereas actually, if you can tell me something I'm not doing well and I can improve, then I can kind of use that to make myself better. So actually, it needs to be constructive. So like I said, as long as it's always with that, this is how you can make it better, then actually for me that was always a huge positive, because okay, I always want to be better in whatever I do. And I think I think sometimes it's accepting those things that, yeah, you don't do well, and they're not necessarily easy to change by any means. There's lots of things that we all know that
I agree.
but I think at least knowing them in the first place,
awareness.
It's just start. Yeah, that awareness of things that you can do better is always a good starting point. And yeah, it's kind of the it's otherwise, if you don't have that acceptance, then you're never going to change anything.
Wow.
Yeah, but yeah, I said there's lots of lessons that I'm still trying to learn. So
it will be a long
that's
conversation.
But actually, in some ways, that's the thing that I'm really excited about aviation, and the thing that really appeals to me is this: it's a constant learning. There isn't a point where ever you get to the point where you think, okay, well, okay, there's nothing else I can learn. And I mean, having spoken to a lot of pilots, they often say, if you ever get to that point, that's the point you should retire. But you don't, because it's such a vast, there's so many variables, there's so many different things, and you're always learning all the time. But actually, that's the thing that really excites me about it, because it means that, yeah, you're never standing still, you're constantly improving. And that's, like I said, for me, always been the biggest motivator.
Amazing, Matt. I mean, I could go on for more minutes, but thank you so much for your time, taking the time to share with us. And I'm sure that many people will want to like follow your journey, especially for that new passion you have taken over. Where can we go to find more about your journey and follow you?
Well, I think obviously now with social media, I mean, I have to confess, I'm pretty terrible. I'm trying to get better. Social media has never been my strong point. So I am, but obviously I am on Twitter, I am on Instagram, and then LinkedIn. So they're probably the best things. I think I need to remember my Twitter handle. I think it's I think they're both Matt Langridge 7, maybe. That shows how
Which
bad I am
account
in it,
is
but
that?
I am trying to get better.
Which account is that one?
I think both are the same. I think Instagram and Twitter are the same.
Okay, great. Anyways,
Yeah,
we will find you, Matt, to
so
see more about your journey.
More than welcome. I am, now that I feel I've got something exciting to post again, I'm trying to put more pictures of me flying and stuff, which I always feel a bit more interested in than just a rowing lake.
Amazing. I'll be looking forward to your pictures. We'll be looking forward to them. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for your time. Very, very precious. And yeah, I know that you have inspired many. So thank you for being with us today.
No, thank you very much, and thank you for having me. It's been it's been lovely chatting. I'm glad that I'm inspired to do this great conversation. I think it's nice for you to say that I had some influence. I mean, I think ultimately it's all you, but it's very kind of you to say.
Thank you, Matt. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.